Stop waiting. Stop waiting to feel ready. Stop waiting to feel inspired. Stop waiting for the perfect mood, the perfect day, or the perfect moment. Because motivation is not the force that changes your life. Discipline is. The people who transform their lives are not the people who feel motivated every morning. They are the people who act when they don't feel like it. They move when their emotions say stop. They continue when excitement disappears. This audiobook will teach you a simple truth. If you depend on motivation, you will always be inconsistent. If you build discipline, you become unstoppable. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Motivation is the biggest lie you keep believing. Let me tell you something that most people never realize. The reason you haven't started is not because you lack potential. The reason you haven't started is not because you lack intelligence. The reason you haven't started is not because you don't know what to do. The reason you haven't started is because you are waiting. Waiting for motivation. Waiting for inspiration. Waiting for the perfect mood. Waiting for the perfect Monday. Waiting for the perfect moment. And while you're waiting, your life is passing by. Think about how many times you've said it. I'll start next week. I'll start when I feel ready. I'll start when I have more energy. I'll start when things calm down. But next week becomes next month. Next month becomes next year. And eventually, years disappear. You have a choice. You can keep waiting, or you can finally understand the truth. Motivation is the biggest lie you keep believing. That's the key. Most people have been taught that motivation creates action. But in reality, action creates motivation. The world tells you to find your motivation. Successful people tell you to build your discipline. Those are completely different things. One is emotional. The other is behavioral. One comes and goes. The other stays. One is unreliable. The other changes lives. Feelings change. Systems remain. Remember that. Feelings change. Systems remain. A person decides they want to get in shape. They watch fitness videos. They buy workout clothes. They imagine the future version of themselves. They feel excited. They feel motivated. For 3 days, maybe 7, maybe 2 weeks. Then something happens. They wake up tired. The weather is bad. Work becomes stressful. Life becomes inconvenient. And suddenly the motivation disappears. The workout disappears too. Not because the goal stopped mattering, not because the dream disappeared, because they built their plan on motivation, and motivation left. Feelings change. Systems remain. Now look at the disciplined person. They don't ask themselves whether they feel motivated. They don't ask whether they feel excited. They don't ask whether today is the perfect day. They simply follow the system. The alarm rings, they get up. The workout starts, they move. Not because they feel like it, because that's what they do. It's not about motivation, it's about discipline. That's the difference. One person follows feelings. The other follows standards. One progresses occasionally. The other progresses consistently. And consistency always wins. Always. The same thing happens in business. Thousands of people dream about starting a business. They have ideas, they have plans. They have notebooks filled with goals, but they never begin. Why? Because they are waiting to feel confident, waiting to feel certain, waiting to feel motivated. You don't need their permission. You don't need certainty. You don't need confidence. You need action. Confidence is not what comes first. Action comes first. Then confidence follows. Successful entrepreneurs are not fearless. They are not endlessly motivated. They simply act before they feel ready. That's the key. The world celebrates outcomes. But outcomes are built from behaviors. And behaviors must exist long before results appear. Most people quit because they expect immediate rewards. Discipline understands delayed rewards. Motivation says, what do I get today? Discipline says, what am I building for tomorrow? Big difference. Life-changing difference. You have a choice. You can keep chasing feelings, or you can start building systems. Feelings change. Systems remain. Let's look at personal growth. How many books have people purchased and never read? How many courses have people started and never finished? How many goals have been written down and forgotten? The problem isn't information. There has never been more information available. The problem is execution. The problem is waiting for a feeling before taking action. And feelings are unreliable. One day you feel unstoppable. The next day you feel discouraged. One day you feel confident. The next day you doubt yourself. One day you feel inspired. The next day you want to quit. If your actions depend on your emotions, your life will always be unstable. That's the key. Your emotions are not designed to lead your life. Your principles are. Your standards are. Your discipline is. Feelings change. Systems remain. The people you admire understand this. The athlete understands this. The writer understands this. The entrepreneur understands this. The leader understands this. They learned a lesson that most people never learn. You do not become successful because you feel motivated. You become successful because you continue acting when motivation disappears. Read that again in your mind. You become successful because you continue acting when motivation disappears. That is where the separation happens. Anyone can act when they feel inspired. Anyone can work when they feel excited. Anyone can chase a goal when everything feels easy. But what happens when it becomes difficult? What happens when nobody's watching? What happens when progress slows down? What happens when the excitement fades? That is where discipline takes over. That is where real growth begins. Because discipline is not tested on good days. Discipline is tested on bad days. The day you're tired, the day you're frustrated, the day you don't feel like doing anything. Those are the days that shape your future. Those are the days that matter most. You have a choice. You can obey your emotions, or you can obey your commitments. Most people obey emotions. Extraordinary people obey commitments. That's why extraordinary people create extraordinary lives. The truth is simple, brutally simple. You don't need more motivation. You need fewer excuses. You don't need another inspirational video. You need consistent action. You don't need to feel ready. You need to begin. Right now. Today. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Not when conditions improve. Now. Because every day you wait, you strengthen hesitation. Every day you act, you strengthen discipline. And discipline is the skill that creates everything else. Discipline creates confidence. Discipline creates success. Discipline creates freedom. Discipline creates self-respect. The people who win are not the people who feel the most motivated. The people who win are the people who keep going after motivation leaves. Never forget that. Feelings change. Systems remain. Feelings change. Systems remain. Feelings change. Systems remain. Build your life around that principle, and everything begins to change. Because the moment you stop depending on motivation is the moment you finally take control of your future. You now understand the lie. Motivation is temporary. Discipline is permanent. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is behavioral. Motivation starts things. Discipline finishes them. And if you want an extraordinary life, discipline must become your foundation. You have stopped waiting for motivation. Now it's time to eliminate something even more dangerous. The constant conversation happening inside your own mind. Because every dream is destroyed twice. First by hesitation, then by negotiation. Let's move forward. Chapter 2. Stop negotiating with your mind. There is a battle happening inside your head every single day. Most people don't even realize it. They think they're fighting laziness. They think they're fighting circumstances. They think they're fighting bad luck. They're not. They're fighting negotiation. And they're losing because the mind has one primary job. Protection, not growth, not success, not greatness. Protection. Your brain is designed to keep you safe. Safe means familiar. Safe means comfortable. Safe means predictable. But growth is none of those things. Growth is uncomfortable. Growth is uncertain. Growth is difficult. That's why every time you try to improve your life, your mind immediately starts talking. And that conversation sounds reasonable. That's what makes it dangerous. The moment you start negotiating, you start losing. Remember that. The moment you start negotiating, you start losing. Let's look at a simple example. Your alarm clock rings at 5:30 in the morning. For one brief second, everything is clear. You know you should get up. You know you plan to get up. You know your goals require you to get up. Then the negotiation begins. 5 more minutes. You slept late. You deserve some rest. You can start tomorrow. One day won't matter. The moment you start negotiating, you start losing. Notice something important. The negotiation never makes you stronger. It never moves you forward. It never improves your future. Its only purpose is to make you comfortable right now. That's the key. Your mind often trades your future for temporary comfort, and it does it one excuse at a time. You have a choice. You can listen, or you can move. The strongest people learn a powerful skill. They act before the negotiation gains momentum. The alarm rings. They stand up immediately. No debate, no discussion, no vote. Action first, thought second. Because they understand something most people don't. The longer you think, the weaker you become. The moment you start negotiating, you start losing. The same thing happens with exercise. You decide you're going to work out. You finish work. You arrive home. For a brief moment, you're still committed. Then the conversation starts. You're tired. You had a long day. Maybe tomorrow would be better. You can skip just this once. The workout can wait. And suddenly the workout disappears. Not because you couldn't do it, because you negotiated yourself out of it. Most failures are not dramatic. They are conversational. They happen quietly. They happen internally. They happen when nobody's watching. One excuse, one delay, one justification, then another, until action disappears completely. That's why discipline requires speed, not recklessness. Speed. When it's time to act, act. When it's time to move, move. When it's time to start, start. Do not sit there and invite resistance into the room, because resistance always brings friends. Doubt arrives, fear arrives, excuses arrive, procrastination arrives, and soon momentum is gone. The moment you start negotiating, you start losing. Students experience this every day. A student sits down to study. The book is open. The materials are ready. The opportunity is right in front of them. Then the negotiation begins. Maybe check your phone first. Maybe watch one video. Maybe organize your desk. Maybe wait until you feel more focused. Hours disappear. Nothing gets done. The problem wasn't ability. The problem wasn't intelligence. The problem was negotiation. You have a choice. You can obey your intentions, or you can obey your excuses. You cannot do both. That's the key. People often think discipline is about forcing yourself. It's not. Discipline is about reducing negotiation. The most disciplined people don't constantly fight themselves. They remove the debate. The decision has already been made. The workout happens. The reading happens. The studying happens. The work happens. No discussion, no bargaining, no emotional committee meeting inside their head, just action. It's not about motivation. It's about discipline. Think about difficult conversations. You know you need to make the call. You know you need to address the issue. You know you need to speak the truth. But instead, you wait. You rehearse. You overthink. You analyze. You delay. And while you're delaying, anxiety grows. Fear grows. Stress grows. Why? Because action eliminates uncertainty. Delay feeds uncertainty. The conversation that takes 5 minutes to have can take 5 months to avoid. That's what negotiation does. It magnifies discomfort. The moment you start negotiating, you start losing. The solution is surprisingly simple. Shorten the gap between decision and action. That's it. Make the gap smaller. You decide to exercise, begin immediately. You decide to study, open the book immediately. You decide to make the call. Dial immediately. You decide to write. Write immediately. Action is easiest at the beginning. Resistance becomes stronger with time. Most people think they need more willpower. Wrong. They need less hesitation. It's not about willpower. It's about speed. That's the key. Successful people understand that momentum is precious. Momentum is difficult to create, easy to destroy, and negotiation destroys it faster than almost anything else. One excuse becomes two. Two become 10. 10 become a habit. Eventually, excuses become your identity. That's dangerous. Because once excuses become identity, failure feels normal. You start expecting less from yourself. You start trusting yourself less. You start believing your own limitations. And all of it began with a simple negotiation, a simple delay, a simple excuse. You don't need their permission. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need to feel ready, you need to act immediately. Before resistance has time to organize itself, before fear has time to grow, before excuses have time to multiply. Action first, analysis later. Movement first, emotion later. Commitment first, comfort later. That's how disciplined people operate. That's how momentum is built. That's how lives change. The truth is simple. Every day your mind will offer comfort. Every day your goals will require effort. And every day you will face a choice. Comfort or growth, excuses or action, negotiation or commitment. You have a choice. The people who build extraordinary lives are not the people with extraordinary motivation. They are the people who refuse to negotiate with weakness. They decide. Then they move. Again and again. Day after day, year after year. The moment you start negotiating, you start losing. The moment you start acting, you start winning. Never forget that. Because discipline is not built through grand gestures. It is built through thousands of small victories over hesitation. Every time you move before the excuse arrives, you become stronger. Every time you act before resistance speaks, you become more disciplined. Every time you honor your decision without debate, you become more powerful. That is how unbreakable discipline is formed. One action at a time, one decision at a time, one victory at a time. You have stopped waiting for motivation. You have learned to stop negotiating with your mind. Now it's time to understand where real transformation actually happens. Not in excitement, not in breakthroughs, but in something much less glamorous. Something most people underestimate. The ordinary days, the repetitive days, the boring days. Because your future is not built in moments of inspiration, it is built in moments of repetition. Chapter 4. Make commitments stronger than emotions. Most people trust their emotions too much. That is the problem. They wake up feeling confident and they believe they can conquer the world. They wake up feeling discouraged and suddenly they believe nothing is possible. The circumstances didn't change. The opportunity didn't change. The goal didn't change. Only the emotion changed. And yet they allow that emotion to dictate their actions. That is a dangerous way to live. Because emotions are temporary. They rise, they fall, they appear, they disappear. But commitment is different. Commitment remains. That's the key. If your life is built on emotions, your results will always be unstable. If your life is built on commitments, your results become predictable. Think about that. A person who only works when they feel motivated will always be inconsistent. A person who works because they made a commitment becomes reliable. And reliability creates success, not excitement, not inspiration. Reliability. Commitment means doing it even when you don't want to. Remember that. Commitment means doing it even when you don't want to. Let's start with marriage. Every successful marriage eventually reaches difficult seasons. There are disagreements, misunderstandings, stress, frustration, moments when emotions are not positive, moments when feelings are not strong, moments when excitement disappears. What keeps the relationship alive? Commitment, not emotion. If relationships depended entirely on feelings, most would collapse the moment difficulty arrived. But commitment creates stability. Commitment says, I will continue even when this is hard. Commitment says, I will honor my promise even when I don't feel like it. That is maturity. That is strength. That is discipline. You have a choice. You can follow your feelings, or you can follow your commitments. The people who build meaningful lives choose commitments every time. Now look at military training. The military does not train soldiers to depend on motivation. Why? Because motivation disappears under pressure. Discipline survives pressure. A soldier cannot wait to feel inspired before acting. A soldier cannot wait for the perfect mood. A soldier follows training. A soldier follows standards. A soldier follows commitment. That is why discipline is repeated again and again until it becomes automatic. Action without hesitation. Action without negotiation. Action without emotional dependence. That's the key. When commitment becomes stronger than emotion, consistency becomes possible. And consistency changes everything. The same principle exists in professional sports. The world sees the championships, the trophies, the celebrations, the success. What the world doesn't see are the mornings when athletes don't want to train, The days they feel exhausted, the days they feel discouraged, the days they question themselves. Those days matter because those days reveal character. Anyone can train when they feel excited. Anyone can perform when confidence is high. The true professional performs regardless. Commitment means doing it even when you don't want to. That is what separates amateurs from professionals. The amateur follows emotion. The professional follows commitment. You don't need their permission. You don't need perfect circumstances. You don't need endless motivation. You need standards. You need commitments. You need a promise to yourself that does not change every time your mood changes. That's the key. Now think about your career. Most people want extraordinary results. They want promotions, growth, financial freedom, opportunity. But they often approach their work emotionally. When they feel motivated, they work hard. When they feel frustrated, they slow down. When they feel discouraged, they stop. That approach guarantees inconsistency, and inconsistency guarantees average results. The people who advance are usually not the most emotional. They are the most dependable. They show up. They deliver. They improve, again and again, whether they feel like it or not. Commitment means doing it even when you don't want to. The problem is that many people misunderstand commitment. They think commitment is a feeling. It isn't. Commitment is a decision. A feeling changes. A decision remains. That distinction matters. Because when you understand this, everything changes. You stop asking, how do I feel today? And you start asking, what did I commit to? Powerful difference. Life-changing difference. Imagine waking up tomorrow. You're tired. Your energy is low. Your motivation is gone. The old version of you would ask, do I feel like doing this? The disciplined version asks a different question. What did I commit to? That's the key. The commitment becomes the leader. The emotion becomes irrelevant. This is how strong habits are formed. This is how trust in yourself is built. Every time you honor a commitment despite discomfort, you strengthen self-respect. Every time you break a commitment because of emotion, you weaken self-respect. Simple, but powerful. Your confidence is not built through positive thinking. Your confidence is built through evidence. And the strongest evidence is keeping promises to yourself. You said you would exercise. You exercise. You said you would study. You study. You said you would wake up early. You wake up early. You said you would finish the work. You finish the work. Now your mind begins to trust you. Why? Because your actions match your words. That is confidence, not motivation, not affirmations, not wishful thinking. Confidence grows when commitments are honored. Commitment means doing it even when you don't want to. Never forget that. The most successful people in the world understand this principle deeply. They understand that emotions are visitors. Commitments are foundations. Visitors come and go. Foundations remain. You have a choice. You can build your life on visitors, or you can build your life on foundations. One creates instability. The other creates strength. One creates inconsistency. The other creates progress. One creates regret. The other creates results. It's not about emotion. It's about discipline. It's not about excitement. It's about commitment. It's not about how you feel. It's about what you do. That's the key. From this day forward, stop asking your emotions for permission. Stop consulting your mood before taking action. Stop allowing temporary feelings to control permanent goals. Your emotions should inform you. They should not lead you. Your commitments should lead you. That is the role of discipline. That is the path to mastery. That is how extraordinary lives are built. One commitment, one action, one day at a time. Eventually, those days become years. Those years become a reputation, and that reputation becomes your destiny. People will call you disciplined. People will call you focused. People will call you successful. But what they are really seeing is a person who stopped obeying emotions and started honoring commitments. A person who acts regardless of mood. A person who moves regardless of comfort. A person who understands a truth most people never learn. Commitment means doing it even when you don't want to. That is where discipline lives. That is where growth lives. That is where success lives. You have learned how to stop waiting for motivation. You have learned how to stop negotiating with your mind. You have learned how to make commitments stronger than emotions. Now it's time to confront another challenge. Not the exciting moments, not the dramatic moments, the difficult moments that appear first every day. Because the strongest people do not avoid hard things, they attack them first. Chapter 5. Do the hard thing first. Every day begins with a battle. Most people lose that battle before breakfast. Not because they are weak, not because they lack talent, not because they lack potential. They lose because they attack the day backward. They start with comfort, they start with convenience, they start with easy. And when the hard thing finally arrives, they have nothing left. No energy, no focus, no discipline, just excuses. That's the problem. The hardest task is usually the most important task. Yet most people postpone it. They delay it. They avoid it. They circle around it all day. And every hour they delay, resistance grows stronger. That is why disciplined people follow a different rule. Do the hard thing first, win the first battle, and the rest of the day becomes easier. Remember that. Win the first battle, and the rest of the day becomes easier. The human mind naturally seeks comfort. It wants pleasure now. It wants ease now. It wants relief now. The problem is that success rarely lives in comfort. Success usually hides behind resistance, behind effort, behind discomfort, behind the thing you least want to do. That's the key. The task you keep avoiding is often the task that matters most. Think about your own life. There is probably something you've been postponing, a difficult project, a business decision, a conversation, a workout, a goal that keeps appearing in your mind. You know it matters. You know it needs attention, yet you keep delaying it. Why? Because resistance is strongest before action begins, not during, before. People imagine the task is difficult. They imagine the discomfort. They imagine the effort. And those thoughts become bigger than reality. The moment action begins, resistance starts shrinking. But most people never get that far. They stay stuck at the starting line. Win the first battle, and the rest of the day becomes easier. Let's talk about exercise. You wake up knowing you should train. Your energy is highest early in the day. Your discipline is strongest early in the day. Yet many people tell themselves they will exercise later, after work, after dinner, after everything else. Then life happens. Meetings happen, stress happens, fatigue happens, distractions happen, and the workout disappears. Not because they couldn't do it, because they postponed it. The lesson is simple. Attack resistance early, before distractions accumulate, before excuses multiply, before energy disappears. That's the key. The same thing applies to important projects. Imagine you have a major assignment, a business proposal, a presentation, a creative project, a chapter to write. Most people spend the morning checking emails, scrolling messages, organizing files, doing busy work. They feel productive, but they are avoiding the real work, the important work, the uncomfortable work. And at the end of the day, the project remains unfinished because they spent their best hours on low-value tasks. You have a choice. You can spend your energy on what is easy, or you can spend your energy on what matters. The people who achieve extraordinary results understand the difference. They protect their best hours. They use them intentionally. They attack the difficult task first. Everything else comes later. Win the first battle, and the rest of the day becomes easier. Writers understand this principle. Many aspiring writers wait for inspiration. They wait for the perfect idea. They wait for creativity to appear. Professionals don't. Professionals sit down and write, whether inspiration arrives or not, whether the words come easily or not. They understand something important. The hardest part is starting. Once momentum exists, the work becomes easier. The same principle applies to every area of life. The hardest phone call, the hardest workout, the hardest decision, the hardest conversation, the hardest project. The greatest growth is usually hidden inside the thing you keep avoiding. That's the key. The obstacle is often the opportunity, but only if you face it, only if you move toward it, only if you stop running from it. Most people structure their day around comfort. Disciplined people structure their day around priorities. There is a massive difference. Comfort asks, what feels easiest? Discipline asks, what matters most? Comfort asks, What can wait? Discipline asks, what should be done now? Comfort seeks relief. Discipline seeks progress. You have a choice, and that choice appears every morning, every single morning. The first hour of your day matters. The first decision matters. The first action matters. Why? Because success creates momentum. Failure creates momentum too. If you begin your day with avoidance, avoidance becomes easier. If you begin your day with action, action becomes easier. Momentum works both ways. That's why the first battle matters so much. Win the first battle, and the rest of the day becomes easier. Think about how confidence is built. Confidence is not built by thinking. Confidence is built by evidence. When you consistently attack difficult tasks, you prove something to yourself. You prove that discomfort does not control you. You prove that resistance does not own you. You prove that excuses do not define you. That evidence becomes confidence, and confidence becomes power. This is why successful people often appear fearless. They are not fearless. They simply have more evidence, more proof, more experience doing hard things despite discomfort. They trust themselves because they have repeatedly honored their commitments. That's the key. The goal is not to eliminate discomfort. The goal is to act despite discomfort. Many people waste years trying to find an easier path, a more comfortable path, a path without resistance. It doesn't exist. Every meaningful goal requires effort. Every meaningful goal requires sacrifice. Every meaningful goal requires discipline. It's not about comfort, it's about discipline. It's not about convenience, it's about discipline. It's not about mood, it's about discipline. The sooner you accept this, the faster your life changes. Starting tomorrow, apply a simple rule. Identify the hardest important task, do it first, before social media, before distractions, before unnecessary meetings. Before low-priority activities, attack it immediately. Do not negotiate. Do not delay. Do not wait for motivation. Move. Take action. Create momentum. Then watch what happens. Stress decreases. Confidence increases. Productivity improves. Self-respect grows. Why? Because you stop carrying the weight of avoidance all day long. Most people spend the day running from difficult tasks. Disciplined people spend the day benefiting from completed difficult tasks. Massive difference. Life-changing difference. Win the first battle, and the rest of the day becomes easier. Never forget that. Because every difficult thing you avoid gains power over you. Every difficult thing you confront loses power over you. That is how strength is built. That is how discipline is built. That is how extraordinary lives are built. One difficult task at a time. One courageous action at a time. One victory at a time. You have learned to stop waiting for motivation. You have learned to stop negotiating with your mind. You have learned to make commitments stronger than emotions. You have learned to attack resistance before it grows. Now it's time to go deeper, because goals alone are not enough. Goals can inspire you, but they cannot sustain you. What truly creates lasting change is something much more powerful. Your identity, the person you believe yourself to be. Chapter 6. Build identity, not goals. Most people are obsessed with goals. That sounds like a good thing, but it isn't always. In fact, your goals may be the very thing keeping you stuck. Think about it. Every year, millions of people set goals. Lose weight, make more money, start a business, read more books, become more productive. The goals sound impressive. The intentions are sincere. The excitement is real. And yet most people quit. Not because the goals were bad, because goals alone are weak. That's the key. A goal can tell you where you want to go, but it cannot tell you who you must become. And who you become matters far more than what you achieve. Don't chase the result. Become the person. Remember that. Don't chase the result. Become the person. Most people focus entirely on outcomes. They want the six-pack. They want the promotion. They want the successful business. They want the recognition. They want the money. Nothing wrong with those things. But there is a problem. They become obsessed with the reward while ignoring the identity required to earn it. And that is where failure begins. Because results are temporary, identity is permanent. A person who focuses only on losing 20 pounds may succeed, But what happens afterward? If they never become a healthy person, the weight often returns. The goal is achieved. The identity remains unchanged, and eventually the old habits return. That's why goals alone fail. You have a choice. You can chase outcomes, or you can build identity. One creates temporary effort. The other creates permanent behavior. The difference is enormous. Imagine two people trying to quit smoking. One says, "I'm trying to quit smoking." The other says, "I am not a smoker." The actions may appear similar, but the identities are completely different. The first person is fighting temptation. The second person is protecting identity. One relies on effort. The other relies on self-image. That's the key. Behavior always follows identity. People act in ways that are consistent with who they believe they are. If you believe you are lazy, your actions will reflect it. If you believe you are disciplined, your actions will reflect that too. Your life is constantly moving toward your identity, whether you realize it or not. Don't chase the result. Become the person. Look at successful athletes. The greatest athletes do not wake up every morning saying, "I hope I win a championship someday." They train like champions long before they become champions. They think like champions. They behave like champions. They make decisions like champions. The identity comes first. The trophy comes later. Most people reverse the process. They say, "Once I achieve success, I'll become confident." Wrong. Confidence grows before success. Discipline grows before success. Identity grows before success. Success is usually the final step, not the first. That's why chasing results often creates frustration. Results are slow. Identity can change immediately. You can decide today to become a disciplined person. You can decide today to become a reader. You can decide today to become a creator. You can decide today to become a leader. The evidence builds afterward, but the decision happens first. You don't need their permission. You don't need validation. You don't need recognition. You need a new identity. That's the key. Let's talk about money. Many people want financial success. They focus entirely on income goals, revenue goals, savings goals. Those things matter, but identity matters more. A financially disciplined person behaves differently. They think differently. They spend differently. They invest differently. They learn differently. The outcome is simply a reflection of the identity. The same principle applies everywhere. A healthy person doesn't constantly force themselves to make healthy choices. Healthy choices are part of who they are. A disciplined person doesn't negotiate with every task. Discipline is part of their identity. A reader doesn't constantly fight to read books. Reading is part of who they are. The behavior feels natural because the identity is strong. Most people focus on what they want. Very few focus on who they must become. That is why very few achieve lasting change. Don't chase the result. Become the person. Ask yourself a different question. Not, "What do I want?" Ask, "Who do I need to become?" Powerful question, life-changing question, because every goal has an identity attached to it. Want a stronger body? Become the type of person who trains consistently. Want a successful business? Become the type of person who solves problems consistently. Want more knowledge? Become the type of person who learns consistently. Notice the pattern. Consistency, identity, behavior. Not outcomes, not wishes, not dreams. That's the key. The goal is not to run a marathon. The goal is to become a runner. The goal is not to write a book. The goal is to become a writer. The goal is not to make money. The goal is to become someone capable of creating value. The outcome eventually arrives, but it arrives because the identity changed first. Most people underestimate the power of small actions. Every action casts a vote. Every action says something about who you are. You read 10 pages. You cast a vote for being a reader. You complete a workout. You cast a vote for being disciplined. You keep a promise to yourself. You cast a vote for being reliable. One vote may seem insignificant, but thousands of votes create identity. That's how transformation happens. Not through one dramatic moment, but through repeated evidence, repeated action, repeated proof. You have a choice. Every day you have a choice. Cast votes for the person you want to become, or cast votes for the person you want to leave behind. Every decision matters. Every action matters. Every habit matters. Because identity is always being reinforced, whether intentionally or unintentionally. That's why discipline becomes easier over time. Not because the work becomes easier, because the identity becomes stronger. At first you force yourself, eventually it becomes who you are. That is the goal, not temporary motivation, not temporary excitement, permanent transformation, permanent identity, permanent behavior. Don't chase the result, become the person. Never forget that. The disciplined person gets results because discipline is part of who they are. The successful person creates success because success-supporting behaviors are part of who they are. The confident person appears confident because they repeatedly act despite fear. Identity drives behavior. Behavior drives outcomes. Outcomes reinforce identity. That cycle changes lives. Starting today, stop obsessing over the finish line. Stop staring at the result. Stop measuring yourself only by outcomes. Instead, focus on becoming. Focus on identity. Focus on daily evidence. Focus on who you are becoming every time you act with discipline. Because when identity changes, everything changes. The habits change, the standards change, the decisions change, the future changes. You have learned to stop waiting for motivation. You have learned to stop negotiating with your mind. You have learned to make commitments stronger than emotions. You have learned to attack difficult tasks first, and now you understand the most powerful lesson so far. Results follow identity, not the other way around. But there is one more illusion that keeps people trapped. The illusion that they must feel ready before they begin. And that illusion has stolen more dreams than failure ever could. Chapter 7. Train yourself to act without feeling ready. There is a lie that has stolen more dreams than failure ever could. It sounds harmless. It sounds reasonable. In fact, most people believe it without question. The lie is this: I'll start when I'm ready. Those 6 words have destroyed more opportunities than fear. Because readiness is not something you discover. Readiness is something you create. That's the key. Most people are waiting for a feeling that never arrives. They imagine a future version of themselves. More confident, more capable, more certain, more prepared, and they believe that version will finally be ready. But life doesn't work that way. Nobody feels fully prepared before doing something important. Nobody. The entrepreneur doesn't feel ready. The speaker doesn't feel ready. The leader doesn't feel ready. The athlete doesn't feel ready. The person changing their life doesn't feel ready. They act anyway. And that changes everything. Action creates confidence. Confidence does not create action. Remember that. Action creates confidence. Confidence does not create action. Most people have the formula backward. They believe confidence comes first, then action, then results. But the real sequence is different. Action comes first, then experience, then confidence, then bigger action. That's how growth actually works. You have a choice. You can wait for confidence, or you can create confidence. The people who succeed choose the second option, every single time. Think about public speaking. Ask almost anyone if they felt completely confident before their first speech. The answer is usually no. Their hands shook. Their heart raced. Their voice felt uncertain. Their mind doubted itself. Yet they stood up and spoke. Why? Because action came first. And after they survived that experience, confidence grew. Then they spoke again, and again, and again. Eventually, they became comfortable. Not because they waited, because they acted. Action creates confidence. Confidence does not create action. That's the key. Now think about entrepreneurship. People spend years planning businesses they never start. They read books, watch videos, attend seminars, take notes, create strategies, prepare endlessly. But preparation becomes a hiding place, because at some point, preparation stops being useful and starts becoming avoidance. The entrepreneur who succeeds eventually takes action. Before they know everything, before they have every answer, before they feel completely ready, because they understand a powerful truth. Clarity comes from action, not from thinking, not from waiting, not from wishing, from action. You don't need their permission. You don't need certainty. You don't need perfect knowledge. You need movement. That's the key. Many people want a better career, a promotion, a new opportunity, a different future. But they hesitate. They tell themselves they need more experience, more qualifications, more confidence, more time. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. But waiting rarely solves the problem, because waiting often becomes a habit, and habits become identities. Eventually, people stop pursuing opportunities because they have trained themselves to delay. That is dangerous. The longer you wait, the harder action becomes. The longer you avoid discomfort, the stronger discomfort becomes. The longer you postpone growth, the more intimidating growth appears. Action creates confidence. Confidence does not create action. Never forget that. Let's talk about personal growth. Most people believe transformation begins with certainty. Wrong. Transformation begins with courage, and courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is action despite fear. Huge difference. The brave person still feels fear. The disciplined person still feels doubt. The successful person still feels uncertainty. The difference is they move anyway. They understand that readiness is often an illusion, a moving target, a condition that keeps changing. If you wait until you feel ready, you may wait forever. You have a choice. You can build your life around comfort, or you can build your life around action. One leads to stagnation, the other leads to growth. One creates regret, the other creates possibility. That's the key. Think about learning a new skill. At the beginning, you are inexperienced, awkward, uncertain. You make mistakes. You feel uncomfortable. That is normal. That is expected. But many people interpret those feelings incorrectly. They think discomfort means they are not ready. No, discomfort means you are learning. Discomfort means you are growing. Discomfort means you are stepping into new territory. It's not about readiness, it's about discipline. It's not about certainty, it's about discipline. It's not about confidence, it's about discipline. Because discipline allows you to move before confidence arrives. And confidence always arrives after movement. The most successful people in the world understand something that average people often miss. Experience cannot be downloaded. It must be earned. You cannot think your way into experience. You cannot plan your way into experience. You cannot imagine your way into experience. You must act. You must participate. You must engage with reality. That is where confidence is born. Not in your thoughts, not in your intentions, in your actions. Action creates confidence. Confidence does not create action. Every time you act despite uncertainty, you collect evidence. Evidence that you can handle challenges. Evidence that you can adapt. Evidence that you can survive mistakes. Evidence that you are stronger than you thought. And evidence creates confidence. Not positive thinking, not wishful thinking. Evidence. That's the key. Many people are trapped because they want guarantees. They want certainty before commitment. They want proof before action. But life rarely offers guarantees. The opportunities that matter most usually require a leap. Not a reckless leap, a disciplined leap, a calculated leap, a courageous leap. The person who waits for guarantees often watches opportunities pass by. The person who acts despite uncertainty often discovers possibilities that others never see. You don't need their permission. You don't need universal approval. You don't need every answer. You need the willingness to begin. Today. Now. Not next year, not someday, now. Because someday is where dreams go to die. Someday is where potential gets buried. Someday is where excuses disguise themselves as plans. The disciplined person understands this. They understand that action is a teacher. Every action provides feedback. Every attempt provides lessons. Every mistake provides information. Waiting provides none of those things. Waiting teaches nothing. Action teaches everything. That's why disciplined people move, even imperfectly, even awkwardly, even uncertainly, because movement creates progress, and progress creates confidence. Action creates confidence. Confidence does not create action. Say it again. Action creates confidence. Confidence does not create action. Build your life around that principle and everything begins to change. The hesitation weakens. The fear shrinks. The excuses lose power. the opportunities grow, the possibilities expand, and your identity transforms. Because every time you act before feeling ready, you prove something important to yourself. You prove that emotions do not control you. You prove that fear does not own you. You prove that uncertainty is not a prison. You prove that discipline is stronger than doubt. That is where real confidence comes from. Not from waiting, not from hoping, from acting, again and again, until courage becomes normal, until action becomes automatic, until discipline becomes your identity. You have stopped waiting for motivation. You have stopped negotiating with your mind. You have learned to honor commitments. You have learned to attack difficult tasks first. You have learned to build identity instead of chasing goals. And now you understand that readiness is not required, action is. But there is another lesson that separates ordinary people from extraordinary people. The ability to walk directly toward discomfort instead of away from it. Because discomfort is not standing in your way. Discomfort is the way. Chapter 8. Embrace discomfort as your teacher. Most people spend their lives running from discomfort. That is why most people never grow. They avoid difficult conversations. They avoid rejection. They avoid failure. They avoid risk. They avoid challenge. They avoid uncertainty. And without realizing it, they avoid growth. Because growth and discomfort are inseparable. You cannot have one without the other. That's the key. Every meaningful transformation requires discomfort. Every, not some, not most. Every. The stronger body requires discomfort. The stronger mind requires discomfort. The stronger character requires discomfort. The stronger future requires discomfort. Yet most people treat discomfort like an enemy. Something to escape. Something to avoid. Something to eliminate. That mindset keeps them trapped. Because discomfort is not the enemy. It is the path. Remember that. Discomfort is not the enemy. It is the path. Think about physical training. Nobody builds strength by staying comfortable. Muscles grow because they are challenged. They are stressed. They are pushed beyond their previous limits. The workout creates discomfort. The discomfort creates adaptation. The adaptation creates strength. Simple, but powerful. Imagine entering a gym for the first time. Everything feels uncomfortable. You feel awkward. You feel uncertain. You feel exposed. Many people quit right there. Not because they cannot improve, because they cannot tolerate discomfort. The disciplined person responds differently. They understand that discomfort is an evidence of growth, not evidence of failure. That's the key. The discomfort is proof that something is changing. You have a choice. You can run from discomfort, or you can learn from it. One path creates comfort, the other creates strength, and strength always serves you better than comfort. Now let's talk about money. Financial success requires discomfort too. Many people dream about financial freedom, but very few are willing to endure financial discomfort. Learning new skills is uncomfortable. Taking calculated risks is uncomfortable. Investing is uncomfortable. Starting a business is uncomfortable. Living below your means is uncomfortable. Delayed gratification is uncomfortable. Yet those are the very actions that often create financial growth. The irony is fascinating. People endure the discomfort of staying broke because they refuse the discomfort of changing. Think about that. They avoid temporary discomfort, then experience permanent frustration. That's the key. Short-term discomfort often creates long-term freedom. Short-term comfort often creates long-term regret. You have a choice. Which discomfort will you choose? Because every life contains discomfort. The discomfort of discipline, or the discomfort of disappointment, the discomfort of growth, or the discomfort of regret. Either way, discomfort is coming. Choose wisely. Discomfort is not the enemy, it is the path. Let's talk about rejection, one of the most feared experiences in human life. People fear rejection in relationships, in business, in careers, in social situations. Why? Because rejection feels painful. It feels personal. It feels uncomfortable. So they avoid it. They never ask, never apply, never speak, never try, never risk. And because they never risk rejection, they never experience possibility. That's tragic, because rejection is one of life's greatest teachers. Every successful person has been rejected. Repeatedly. Entrepreneurs, athletes, writers, leaders, salespeople, creators, all rejected, not once, many times. The difference is they stopped treating rejection as proof of inadequacy. They treated it as information, feedback, experience, growth. That's the key. Failure works the same way. Most people fear failure. Disciplined people study failure. Most people avoid failure. Disciplined people use failure. Massive difference. Failure contains lessons. Failure reveals weaknesses. Failure exposes blind spots. Failure develops resilience. But only if you face it. Only if you learn from it. Only if you stop running from it. Discomfort is not the enemy. It is the path. Many people say they want personal growth. What they really want is personal growth without discomfort. That doesn't exist. Growth requires change. Change requires uncertainty. Uncertainty creates discomfort. The process cannot be separated. You cannot ask for transformation while avoiding the conditions that create transformation. It's not about comfort. It's about discipline. It's not about ease. It's about discipline. It's not about avoiding pain. It's about discipline. Because discipline teaches you how to move forward despite discomfort. And that skill changes everything. Think about every major improvement you've ever made. Learning a skill, building a habit, improving your health, increasing your income, strengthening your confidence. Was it comfortable? Probably not. The improvement came because you endured temporary discomfort, not because you avoided it. That's the pattern. Again and again, throughout life, discomfort becomes the price of admission, the price of growth, the price of excellence, the price of transformation. You don't need their permission. You don't need everyone to understand your journey. You don't need universal approval. You need courage. You need persistence. You need the willingness to stay in discomfort long enough to learn from it. That's the key. Many people quit too early. They experience discomfort and immediately assume something is wrong. No, something may be right. The discomfort may be evidence that you're stretching beyond old limitations. The discomfort may be evidence that you're expanding. The discomfort may be evidence that you're becoming more. Not less, more. Every breakthrough feels uncomfortable before it feels rewarding. Every transformation feels uncomfortable before it feels natural. Every level of growth feels uncomfortable before it feels familiar. That is how life works. The disciplined person understands this. The average person resists this. That difference changes everything. Imagine two people facing the same challenge. One person sees discomfort and retreats. The other sees discomfort and advances. 5 years later, their lives look completely different. Not because of talent, not because of luck, because of their relationship with discomfort. One avoided it, one embraced it, one stayed the same, one evolved. You have a choice. Every day you have a choice. Move toward comfort or move toward growth. Move toward ease or move toward improvement. Move toward avoidance or move toward possibility. The decision belongs to you, and it belongs to you every single day. Discomfort is not the enemy. It is the path. Say it again. Discomfort is not the enemy. It is the path. The next time you feel resistance, pause. Do not immediately retreat. Ask yourself a better question. What is this discomfort trying to teach me? Powerful question, because discomfort often contains the lesson you need most, the growth you need most, the transformation you need most. Learn to listen. Learn to endure. Learn to move forward anyway. That is how discipline is built. That is how resilience is built. That is how confidence is built. Not through comfort, through challenge, not through avoidance, through action, not through safety, through growth. You have learned to stop waiting for motivation. You have learned to stop negotiating with your mind. You have learned to honor commitments. You have learned to build identity. You have learned to act before feeling ready. And now you understand that discomfort is not standing between you and success. It is leading you toward it. But there is one final shift that transforms discipline from an occasional behavior into a permanent lifestyle. A shift away from goals. A shift toward standards, because goals can inspire you, but standards determine how you live. Chapter 9. Create non-negotiable standards. Most people have goals. Very few people have standards. And that difference explains why most goals never become reality. A goal is something you want. A standard is something you live by. A goal is a target. A standard is a rule. A goal is an intention. A standard is a requirement. That's the key. Goals inspire. Standards determine. Most people spend their lives focused on goals. They want better health, more money, a stronger mindset, a successful career, a better future. Those goals are important, but goals alone are not enough because goals only matter occasionally. Standards matter every day. You do not rise to your goals. You fall to your standards. Remember that. You do not rise to your goals. You fall to your standards. Think about it. Almost everyone wants success. Almost everyone wants improvement. Almost everyone wants growth. Yet results vary dramatically. Why? Because wanting something and requiring something are not the same. The person who says, I want to get fit, has a goal. The person who says, I train 4 times a week no matter what, has a standard. One hopes, one operates, one wishes, one executes. That's the difference. Goals create direction, standards create behavior, and behavior creates results. You have a choice. You can build your life around wishes, or you can build your life around standards. One creates inconsistency, the other creates transformation. Let's talk about reading. Many people have a goal of reading more books, a noble goal, an intelligent goal, a useful goal. But goals are often vague. What does read more actually mean? More than last year? More than last month? More than your friends? There is no clarity, no structure, no standard. Now compare that to a different approach. I read 10 pages every day. That is a standard. No debate, no confusion, no negotiation. 10 pages. Every day. Whether you're tired, whether you're busy, whether you're motivated or not. That's the key. Standards eliminate decision fatigue. The decision has already been made. The behavior becomes automatic. The identity becomes stronger. The results become inevitable. You do not rise to your goals, you fall to your standards. The same principle applies to exercise. A goal says, I want to get healthier. A standard says, I exercise every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. A goal says, I want more energy. A standard says, I go to bed at a specific time. A goal says, I want to lose weight. A standard says, I don't skip workouts. See the difference? One is emotional. The other is operational. One depends on mood. The other depends on commitment. That's why standards are so powerful. They remove negotiation, and negotiation is where discipline often dies. Most people fail because they decide too often. Every day becomes a debate. Should I do it? Should I skip it? Should I start tomorrow? Should I wait? The disciplined person doesn't ask those questions. The standard already answered them. That's the key. The rule is already established. The decision is already made. Now let's talk about work. Many people want career growth, promotions, recognition, opportunity, higher income. But again, they focus on goals instead of standards. They chase outcomes. They ignore behaviors. A professional standard might sound like this. I arrive prepared. I finish what I start. I deliver quality work. I keep my promises. Those are standards. And those standards create a reputation. That reputation creates opportunities. That opportunity creates success. The result appears because the standard existed first, never the other way around. You do not rise to your goals. You fall to your standards. Let's go deeper. Standards are not just about productivity. They are also about self-respect. Many people tolerate behaviors that damage their confidence. They break promises to themselves, ignore responsibilities, lower expectations, accept mediocrity again and again. Then they wonder why they don't trust themselves. Trust is built through standards. Self-respect is built through standards. Confidence is built through standards, not through wishes, not through positive thinking, through standards. If you tell yourself you're going to do something, then do it. That becomes a standard. If you say your health matters, act accordingly. That becomes a standard. If you say your future matters, protect your time. That becomes a standard. Every standard strengthens identity. Every broken standard weakens identity. You have a choice. raise your standards, or lower your future. Because the two are connected, whether you realize it or not, that's the key. Look at people who command respect. They have standards. They don't tolerate certain behaviors. They don't tolerate certain excuses. They don't tolerate certain habits. Not because they're perfect, because they understand boundaries. Standards are boundaries. Rules you create for yourself. Rules that protect your future. Rules that protect your values. Rules that protect your growth. Without standards, life becomes reactive. With standards, life becomes intentional. Massive difference. Life-changing difference. It's not about motivation, it's about discipline. It's not about goals, it's about discipline. It's not about desire, it's about discipline. Because discipline turns standards into reality. Discipline enforces the rule when emotions disagree. Discipline keeps the promise when comfort becomes attractive. Discipline protects the standard when excuses appear. That's why discipline is the foundation of everything we've discussed throughout this audiobook. Without discipline, standards are just words. With discipline, standards become identity, and identity becomes destiny. Think about the strongest people you know. They probably don't spend all day talking about goals. They simply live by standards. They show up. They follow through. They remain consistent, day after day, year after year. The behavior becomes who they are. That is the power of standards. Most people underestimate it, but standards quietly shape every area of life. Your health, your finances, your relationships, your career, your confidence, your future. All of it. You do not rise to your goals. You fall to your standards. Say it again. You do not rise to your goals. You fall to your standards. The next time you set a goal, ask a better question. What standard supports this goal? Don't just define the destination, define the behavior. Don't just define the outcome, define the rule. Don't just define the dream, define the daily action. Because dreams without standards remain dreams. Standards turn dreams into reality. That is the lesson. That is the shift. That is the path. You have learned to stop waiting for motivation. You have learned to stop negotiating with your mind. You have learned to make commitments stronger than emotions. You have learned to build identity instead of chasing outcomes. You have learned to embrace discomfort. And now you understand one of the most powerful truths in personal development. Success is not built on goals. Success is built on standards. But there is one final lesson that brings everything together. One final principle that separates those who occasionally succeed from those who become unstoppable. The ability to show up again and again and again, long after excitement disappears. Chapter 10. Become the person who always shows up. Everything we've discussed in this audiobook comes down to one simple principle. Not motivation, not talent, not luck, not even intelligence. Consistency. That's the key. The people who change their lives are not always the smartest, not always the strongest, not always the most gifted. They are the most consistent. They keep showing up again and again and again. Long after the excitement disappears, long after the motivation fades, long after everyone else quits, the disciplined person always wins because they never stop showing up. Remember that. The disciplined person always wins because they never stop showing up. Most people underestimate the power of consistency. They are obsessed with intensity. They want dramatic transformations, massive breakthroughs, rapid results, instant success. They want everything now. But life rarely works that way. Success is usually quiet, slow, repetitive, unremarkable, at least in the beginning. That's why so many people miss it. They are looking for fireworks when they should be looking for habits. Think about a tree. A tree does not become massive overnight. You don't wake up one morning and suddenly see decades of growth appear. Growth happens gradually, invisible at first, small improvements, tiny changes, daily progress. Then one day everyone notices. Success works the same way. The disciplined person always wins because they never stop showing up. The average person wants immediate results. The disciplined person focuses on daily actions. The average person becomes discouraged by slow progress. The disciplined person trusts the process. The average person stops when motivation disappears. The disciplined person continues. That difference changes everything. You have a choice. You can chase intensity, or you can build consistency. One creates temporary effort. The other creates lasting transformation. Most people are incredibly disciplined for a week. Some are disciplined for a month. A few remain disciplined for a year. But greatness belongs to the people who continue long after the excitement disappears. That's the key. Because success is rarely decided in the beginning. Success is usually decided in the middle. The boring middle. The difficult middle. The repetitive middle. The place where nobody is watching. The place where nobody is applauding. The place where progress feels slow. That is where champions are created. Not when things are exciting, when things are ordinary. Let's go back through everything you've learned. You learned that motivation is unreliable. Feelings change. Systems remain. You learned to stop negotiating with your mind, because the moment you start negotiating, you start losing. You learned that commitments must become stronger than emotions, because commitment means doing it even when you don't want to. You learned to attack difficult tasks first, because winning the first battle makes the rest of the day easier. You learn to build identity instead of chasing goals, because identity creates behavior. Behavior creates outcomes. You learn to act before feeling ready, because action creates confidence. Confidence does not create action. You learn to embrace discomfort, because discomfort is not the enemy, it is the path. You learn to create standards, because you do not rise to your goals, you fall to your standards. Every lesson points to the same destination. Show up. That's it. Show up. When you're motivated, show up. When you're tired, show up. When you're confident, show up. When you're uncertain, show up. When progress is obvious, show up. When progress is invisible, show up anyway. The disciplined person always wins because they never stop showing up. Most people believe success is built through extraordinary moments. It's not. Success is built through ordinary moments repeated consistently. A workout, a chapter read, a promise kept, a difficult task completed, a distraction resisted, a standard maintained. Small actions, repeated over time. That is the formula. Simple. Not easy, but simple. You don't need their permission. You don't need constant encouragement. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need ideal circumstances. You need consistency. That is what changes lives. There will be days when you don't feel like doing the work. Do it. There will be days when progress feels invisible. Continue. There will be days when doubt appears. Move anyway. There will be days when quitting feels attractive. Keep going, because discipline is not tested when things are easy. Discipline is tested when things are difficult. And every time you continue despite difficulty, you become stronger. Every time you continue despite discomfort, you become more resilient. Every time you continue despite doubt, you become more disciplined. That's the key. The world often celebrates talent, but talent without consistency eventually loses. The world often celebrates potential, but potential without consistency remains unrealized. The world often celebrates intelligence, but intelligence without consistency creates frustration. Consistency is the multiplier. Consistency turns talent into achievement. Consistency turns potential into results. Consistency turns dreams into reality. The disciplined person always wins because they never stop showing up. Think about the people you admire, the authors, the athletes, the entrepreneurs, the leaders, the creators. Look closely. Their greatest advantage is usually not brilliance, it is consistency. Years of showing up, years of practicing, years of learning, years of improving, years of refusing to quit. That is where greatness comes from. Not a single moment, thousands of moments. You have a choice. Every day, every morning, every decision. You can move closer to your future or further away from it. You can strengthen discipline or strengthen excuses. You can reinforce your identity or weaken it. The choice never disappears, but neither does the opportunity, because every day offers a fresh chance to show up again and again and again. That is how confidence grows. That is how standards strengthen. That is how identity changes. That is how success is built. Not in one giant leap, in thousands of disciplined steps. The truth is that extraordinary people are often ordinary people who refuse to stop. They kept showing up when others quit. They kept learning when others complained. They kept working when others waited. They kept moving when others doubted. That is the difference. The disciplined person always wins because they never stop showing up. Say it one more time. The disciplined person always wins because they never stop showing up. Let those words stay with you. Not today, not this week, for the rest of your life. Because if you remember nothing else from this audiobook, remember this. You do not need more motivation. You need more consistency. You do not need perfect conditions. You need daily action. You do not need a breakthrough. You need discipline. One day, one decision, one action, one promise kept, again and again, until discipline becomes your identity, until consistency becomes automatic, until success becomes inevitable. This is how extraordinary lives are built. Not through intensity, through consistency, not through motivation, through discipline, not through inspiration, through action. And from this day forward, make one commitment to yourself, no matter what happens, no matter how you feel, no matter how slow the progress seems. Keep showing up, because the disciplined person always wins. They always win, because they never stop showing up. Now you understand the truth. Motivation was never the answer. Motivation comes and goes. Motivation rises and falls. Motivation disappears the moment life becomes difficult, but discipline stays. Discipline wakes up when it is tired. Discipline works when it is uncomfortable. Discipline continues when nobody is watching. Discipline keeps moving when emotions change. Every chapter of this audiobook points to the same lesson. Stop waiting. Stop waiting to feel confident. Stop waiting to feel inspired. Stop waiting to feel ready. Start acting. Because every time you act despite resistance, you become stronger. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you build trust in yourself. Every time you show up when you don't want to, you become the person capable of extraordinary things. So here is your challenge. For the next 7 days, choose one action that matters and do it every day, no matter how you feel. No excuses, no negotiations, no waiting. Just action, because the life you want is not built by motivation. It is built by discipline. And starting today, discipline becomes your new identity.